Let's discuss this with Owen Phillips, who's a student at Queen's and a member of the Community Action Tenants Union, which is CATU, and also Brice Roddy, who's of the Holylands Residents Network. Brice, we'll start with you. This idea of creating student-only areas of Belfast, would that solve problems or create them?
Well, I don't exactly know what it's meant by that. If that would mean displacing local families in settled communities, it would be a very bad idea. If that would mean developing new build with 24/7 security, good, affordable and quality housing, then possibly that would be a good thing. But we do have already purpose-built student accommodation, and Queen's itself has 3,400 places. So is that what's meant by this student village? I don't know what it means because I've never heard of it in any other university or any other university town.
Well, the problem seems to be, and this is part of what Sinead McLaughlin is talking about, is that simply there is not enough accommodation for students in Belfast at the moment. And they want to try and find ways of creating accommodation that allows them to attend the university and to live, for example, in Belfast in this case. But, you know, for the idea, for example, of turning the Holyland area into a student area, and that, I have to say, is not something that she suggested, but would that be something that could be considered? What do you think?
So what would you do with the families who've lived there all their lives and whose parents have lived there all their lives? Absolutely not. It would mean, as I say, displacing families who've already lived there. It's definitely a bad idea. I can understand why students want protection. They shouldn't be in the private market. I think we have a need for a lot more purpose-built accommodation that will protect renters' rights. I was a student at Queen's myself. I know what it's like to have little money. I came from a working class family, the first to go to university. If I didn't have a grant and quality accommodation, I couldn't have done it. But another point I would raise here, Chris, why all roads leading to Belfast? Why do we have two universities in Belfast? Why don't we up the intake, create places in Derry, which was originally to have its own university? I think there's a big political issue there. And the whole issue of accommodation in the private sector, to me, definitely needs looked at because students are not protected. Neither are ordinary tenants protected in a private sector which is rampant and greedy at the moment.
But are you essentially saying halls? You want more halls, student halls?
Yes, purpose-built student accommodation is what residents have always asked for.
All right.
This is not...
Sorry, I just need to bring in Owen. We'll come back to you. Owen, what do you think? More student halls, segregated areas for students? Would that even work? What are your thoughts?
In CATU, we oppose the idea of like a segregated student area, primarily because we don't think it would really solve the issue. It would only end up dividing people who fundamentally have the same issue, which is overpriced housing for low quality housing. What we would be looking at is addressing this broader issue, which is a housing shortage. It's not exclusively affecting students. So the within CATU, we'd be looking to get community solidarity going to try and solve that issue rather than separate them out and imagine the student accommodation as a completely separate issue to the housing issue.
OK, but it's not just about housing prices and housing costs, is it? It's about what happens where you get big areas of students like the Holyland where there are then problems socially as well. It's about behaviour and about two quite disparate groups of people coming together in a close place.
I think when you have, especially in areas where you have houses that have been built for families of four that have been now partitioned into 5-6 room HMOs, the issue then is overcrowding, and those rooms are being sold at extortionate prices, and the area itself is overpoliced. If we give these people something to be invested in their community, then I don't think we'd see the kind of antisocial behaviour that people usually complain about. Just
how bad is it in terms of overcrowding, in terms of pricing? What are some of the stories, that the money that you've heard, Owen, that's being handed over at the moment?
Well, the price that people can be paying like upwards of £300 a month for a single room in a shared house, which is usually underserviced, especially by absentee landlords who just own the property and take the money from that. and they will hire a property manager who's very rarely around. There are plenty of stories from the Holylands that we get from both our members and people who are interested in CATU who talk about appalling conditions in the Holylands.
It's easy to say things, though, like extortionate rents and extortionate money. The reality is that's what people are able to charge because there is a demand. And Breeze Ruddy, whenever you listen to Owen, he's not disagreeing with you on an awful lot, but at the same time, the difficulty here is having two groups of people living beside each other. And I suppose the argument from Sinead McLaughlin is, listen, we can solve this by having zoned off areas.
I don't think that works at all. I don't actually think that's what Sinead is saying. But also in terms of overcrowding, statistically, the Holy Land is the most densely populated area of Belfast, possibly Northern Ireland. That is a statistical fact. Now, if you look at the Holy Land, there are several streets, like College Park Avenue and Rugby Road, that are mainly populated by residents with a good cohort of students. Those streets present no problem because there's community solidarity, there's community cohesion, the houses look good, we have residents parking, and things are good. If you look at the streets which are mainly transient, with transient tenants in and out a lot, paying too much, as Owen is saying, for one room, and I know of people who paid £400 to £500 for a room in Magdala Street, £400 to £500. So there is a way in which you can integrate people. That's what government policy is all about.
Okay.
People sharing.
We have to leave it there.
When I talk about purpose-built, there has to be a choice.
Okay, listen, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. That's Breeze Ruddy and Owen Phillips there.